Things are beginning to look vibrant with the seasonal change, and I thought to sew a colorful bird this time. Here comes your vibrant toucan. These guys are known for their colorful appearance and very sharp looking big beaks. I think I got that right. Final measurements of this one is 6 inches in height and 4.5 inches in width. Now it's time to make one of your own, and let's see what are the materials and tools you need. You'll need felt fabric in your color of choice, matching embroidery threads, a pair of scissors, pins and a needle, a fabric marking pen, fiber fill for stuffing, and a thin rod with a blunt end to stuff narrow areas. Last but not least, you'll need the PDF pattern for this project. First, cut out all the pattern pieces on the template along the straight lines. Please don't cut along those dashed lines, those are serving as a guide for you when sewing. You can find the link for the PDF pattern and photo tutorial down in the description. At the end, you will get a total of 8 different pieces for this particular pattern. After you have carefully cut all the pieces, use those to cut the required number of felt pieces. Whenever you need 2 pieces from a particular template, fold the fabric in half to make it into 2 layers. Then pin and place the template to those 2 fabric layers. You can carefully cut around the pattern after that. But in this particular black colored felt, I have selected the thicker felt sheet, 2 mm in thickness. I don't exactly know the reason why, but when it comes to regular black colored felt sheets, they tend to leave residue everywhere. I didn't want that and chose a thicker felt sheet. Because of that, I'm cutting them one by one. Finally, remove the pins and you got your fabric pieces ready. You can also outline the pattern by placing it on top of the fabric. Use a fabric marking pen. I usually place the wrong side of the pattern on the fabric and then outline that side of the pattern. Since you are using the other side of the felt fabric for sewing, all these markings won't be a problem after. Now carefully cut around the drawn pattern. Please make sure that the mentioned number of pieces are only for decorating one side of the toucan. If you feel like decorating both sides, double the number of pieces for head, outer eye, inner eye, chest, belly and mid-beak. You have cut the fabric piece at this point, and remember we are using the side without the markings when going forward. You can also just hold the template to the fabric from your one hand and cut from the other. Choose any of these methods to cut all your felt pieces. It is totally up to you. Now these are the fabric pieces you will need to complete this felt toucan. Total of 10 pieces, and let's start with sewing. We are starting with the head. Thread your needle and make a knot at the end. Take the felt piece for the head and place that on top of one of the 2 body pieces. You can refer to the template of the body piece to see where the piece goes. Since we need to attach the beak at the end, you need to leave a bit of space around the beak area. You will notice that on the template piece for the body. Now use the back stitch or web stitch to sew the head part to the body. I'm using back stitch here and it's totally up to you. Start at one point and go all the way around. Now this is where knowing a few basic stitches would come in handy. But it won't be a problem for you since we have tutorials for all those necessary stitches. Make sure to check out the description below to find the links. After you have successfully sewed the head, place the outer eye piece on top of the sewed head and sew it to the head using the back stitch or whip stitch as we did before. I'm using whip stitch for this part, and I'm also using the same yellow thread color to give a bit of vibrant touch to the eye. If you would like, you can change the thread color. Sew all the way around the outer eye. Next step is attaching the inner eye. Place the inner eye on top of the outer eye and sew it around using the back stitch or web stitch. These birds have very prominent eyes and those are relatively bigger compared to their head size. If you would like, you can make these eyes even bigger just to feature that sharply. After you have sewed all 3 pieces, turn over to the wrong side of the fabric and make a couple of knots to secure the stitch. If you have used separate thread colors for each and every piece, you will need to do this every time you change the thread color. You can finally trim the thread. Now we are moving to the next part, which is the chest. Place the piece for the chest right below the head piece. Please refer to the template for the body piece as a guide. It doesn't have to fit perfectly in case you are wondering. Slight differences in sewing can change things here and there. Then start to sew the chest piece to the body using the back stitch or web stitch and sew all the way around. I'm using the back stitch here and I have also changed my thread color to white for this part. If you have ever seen a real toucan for yourself, you'll notice that these birds are often found sitting in trees rather than flying. The reason for that is their small wings. Because of that, they need to flap their wings a lot harder to fly. So they are just saving their energy by sitting. Next time someone asks you why you're sitting all the time, you know the answer: saving energy. Once you have sewed the chest, end the stitch by making a couple of knots at the back. Use any of the threads at the back to make knots. You only have to do this whenever you are changing the color of the thread or running out of thread. Finally, trim the thread. Next piece to sew is the belly. Place the piece for the belly right below the chest piece and try to keep them aligned as possible. Keep the template for the body closer as a guide if you need to. Then start to sew the belly piece to the body using the back stitch or web stitch and go all the way around the piece. I'm using the back stitch for this part. I basically use yellow, white, orange and bit of blue felt colors to decorate this toucan. But you can use all sort of scrap felt to decorate your toucan. Some other common colors that go with these birds are red, green and more of blue. I mean, how about a combination of colors in a mosaic pattern to fill these parts? I think it will look great. Once you sewed all the way around, end the stitch by making a couple of knots at the back. Trim the thread. At this point, we are all done with sewing pieces to the body. Next, we are going to assemble the 2 body pieces together. Place the decorated body piece on top of the other body piece aligning with each other. The important thing you need to know is you have to leave the curvy beak area unsewn. It's for attaching the beak to the body at the end. Thread your needle with a matching embroidery thread color and make a knot at the end. Start at any of the 2 points of the beak area and go all the way around the body, leaving the area for the beak open. Use the blanket stitch or web stitch to sew the 2 layers together, and I'm using the blanket stitch for this step. In case if you don't know how to do the blanket stitch or web stitch, please make sure to follow our tutorials before this. I'll leave the links in the description. As many other birds, toucans are also social creatures. They tend to live in flocks. So you might need to make another one to keep this one in company. Just an idea. It's better to start stuffing after you have sewed lower wing area. Then it will be easier to reach the bottom narrow end. Use a little fiber fill at a time and use something with a blunt end like a wooden rod to reach corners. After this point, keep stitching and stuffing till you reach the other end of the beak area. Now please keep in mind that you have to leave the opening for the beak unsewn. Have you ever wondered why these birds are so colorful? It works as their defense mechanism. Because they live in an exotic and tropical habitats with lot of colorful vegetations and plants, their vibrant colors help them to blend in nicely. That way they won't be an easy target for predators. When you reach the other end of the beak area, make a couple of knots to secure the stitch. Insert the needle in between the two fabric layers and come through only one layer. This way you can nicely hide away the extra thread. Pull the needle towards you and trim the thread. Now at this point, stuff more if you think it's not enough. This is how the body of the toucan looks with its beak area open, and now keep it aside so you can move to the beak. To sew the toucan's beak, take one of the pieces for the beak and place the mid-beak piece on top of it. You can refer to the final picture of the toucan to see the way it is placed. Then sew the mid-beak piece to the beak using the back stitch or whip stitch. I'm using whip stitch here and go all the way around the smaller piece. I would love to try making more bird patterns, and let me know if you have any ideas for me to try out. I'm thinking more of these exotic birds or an eagle. Let's see how it goes. After you have reached the starting point, end the stitch by making a couple of knots at the back of the fabric and finally trim the thread. Now it's time to assemble the beak and place the piece with the mid-beak on top of the other beak piece. We are going to sew these two pieces together. But before that, there is another important thing to do. Don't forget we need to attach the beak to the body, so we have to leave a space unsewn for that. Now place the template piece for the beak on top of the two beak pieces. As you can see, there are two dashed lines on that, and using that as a guide, slightly mark those 2 points on the felt piece using a fabric marking pen. It's all set, and now you can start sewing. Starting from one of the marked points, sew the two pieces together using the blanket stitch or whip stitch. I'm using the whip stitch, and we are only going to sew until we reach the other marked point, leaving that marked space to sew the beak to the body. When you reach the other marked point, make a couple of knots to secure the stitch. Trim the thread at this point if you don't have enough thread left to sew around the beak. I'm going to leave the thread since I have enough to sew the beak to the body. Now start to stuff the beak using the opening we left and use the wooden rod to reach corners. Stuff it up to the opening we left. Moderate stuffing is better with the beak, otherwise if you are planning on hanging this as an ornament, it will be much difficult to balance it. Even in real life, beaks of toucans are light and hollow despite of its larger size. Their beaks are around 3 times larger than their heads. We are at the final step of our project, and it's time to sew the beak to the body. Hold the body and the beak closer together, and if you have left enough space, the opening of the beak will cover the opening of the body. Now start to sew the beak to the body using the whip stitch while holding the two pieces together. Always start at the inside of any of the two openings to hide away the knot. Simply you are moving the needle through the beak layer and then the body layer or the other way around. Then repeat the process again and again. This stitch is called the whip stitch. The reason I wanted to say that is, I know there are some people who don't recognize what these stitches called, but they know how to do it. I'm also self-taught to sewing and I know it really works. Learning things by your own without knowing all the proper terms also work. I personally think it allows you to try out more things. Now try to make your stitches tighter to stop things falling apart and to make a steady beak. Keep sewing all the way around the beak, both front and back. Once you reach the starting point, make a couple of knots to secure the stitch. Insert the needle in between the two layers and come through only one layer. Pull the needle towards you and trim the thread. With that final trim, we are all done with making a colorful toucan. I truly like the way this toucan turned out and would love to know what you think of it. You can use this toucan as it is or let me give you some more ideas. We all have at least one nature-loving, animal-loving or bird-loving person as our friend or a family member. This will be a thoughtful gift for them. I mean, who wouldn't like a handmade gift and it's an exotic bird? You can also use a small cotton thread to hang this guy at the top to use as an ornament. It will bring a vibrant touch to your Christmas times. As I told you earlier, they live in flocks. So make a few more toucans and cut some felt leaves. Then attach all of those using a longer thread to make a beautiful garland to decorate your place. I hope you'll find this project fun and useful. Thank you for watching and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye for now and I'll join you in the next one.